Perfect. Thank you, Michelle. Uh, Good afternoon or good morning, depending on where you're joining us. Welcome all. You're in the metal webinar series, Youth Apprenticeship. Yes, it can work in metals manufacturing. I'm Mark Genoa, Director at Jobs for the Future. And thanks for joining us. We'll get started. Let's give it one more minute, let folks join from their previous meetings, but we'll get started in a minute. In the meantime, it'd be helpful if folks would introduce themselves in the chat. Put your name, title, and organization where you're coming from. Definitely help us and the rest of the presenters engage you today. Thanks all for joining. We'll get started in a minute. Excellent. So we're about 2 minutes past the hour. So we'll get started. Again, thank you all for joining. Welcome. You're at the Metal Webinar Series, Youth Apprenticeship. Yes, it can work in metals manufacturing. If you're just joining us, as other folks have done in the chat, please put your name, title, and organization or company so we get to know you all. And this is one of a series that Jobs for the Future is doing as part of the Metal Project. So if you've been with us before, thank you for joining again for this webinar. And if you haven't, welcome for the first time. We have a couple more that we're going to continue on. The next one probably be in August, about every 6 weeks. So please, let us know. Join our mailing list. Stay tuned for future webinars. But today, we're here to talk about youth apprenticeship. We have a great presenter from the Wisconsin Aluminum Foundry that is joining us today. As you can see, thank you for that. The agenda up on the screen. But before we get to that, first, we'll be hearing from IACME, Lucinda Curry, who leads the Metal Initiative across the country. She'll give a brief overview about the Metal Project. And then I will continue, give an overview of youth apprenticeship, make sure everyone's on the same playing field. Everyone knows what the main focus of the topic is today. And then, as I mentioned, Michelle Szymik from Wisconsin Aluminum Foundry will provide their specific example of how youth apprenticeship has worked at their facilities. And we'll leave plenty of time for question and discussions at the end. And speaking of questions, if you have any questions as we go along during this webinar, feel free to put them right in the chat where you introduce yourselves. And we'll either answer them on the spot if it makes sense. But if not, we'll have plenty of times at the end for question and answer and discussion. And then after that wraps up, we'll end. We'll have Becky Caldwell from JFF join and kind of tell you how to get engaged with us and with the Metal Project. Without further ado, let's get started. Next slide. So with that, as I mentioned, I'm going to bring on Lucinda Curry. She's the National Workforce Manager at IACME and the lead there for the Metal Project. Lucinda?
Thank you, Mark. Appreciate everyone taking time to be on the call today. And for those of you who've not heard about Metal, just give you a brief overview. The rationale for the Metal Project, which stands for Metallurgical Engineering Trades, Apprenticeship, and Learning, is because of our need to produce more metal castings in the United States, as well as forging and plate rolling. So, bringing that back more to the United States, increasing capacity with the companies that we have, increasing the workforce and automation in any way that we can to just help the United States, build that capacity back up. As you can see, the foundry workforce decreased for many years, but the global metal casting market is still very large. And the Navy, just in itself, is looking at needing 10,000 manufacturing workers per year over the next decade. So that's across the Navy, but also we're working with the Air Force and the Army. So the DoD and their plans, for the industrial base, to make more parts here in the United States, and then also to help meet their own needs, really was the rationale for the metal project. Next. So as I said, metal does stand for Metallurgical Engineering Trades Apprenticeship and Learning. It really encompasses everything from K-12 up to PhD engineers. So the whole realm of workforce development, including technician level apprenticeships. It is supported by the Department of Defense Industrial Base Analysis and Sustainment Program, IBAS. And is really led by industry. We have some great industry partners from many industry associations, as well as individual companies that are helping to lead and guide this work. Next. And Matt Draper is our illustrious leader from the Navy and from IBAS. And this is one of his quotes that we just really feel is critical, so I like to read it. The shrinking supply chain for critical defense materials demands immediate response. We must rebuild a modern workforce, technologically adept and capable of meeting the demands of our defense industry with efficiency and innovation. Couldn't have said it better. Matt is a critical piece of bringing metal to the forefront with the Department of Defense and also with multiple administrations. So glad that he's our leader, and it's just an important aspect for all of us. We have to meet our commercial and our defense supply chain needs. Next. So I'll turn it back over to you, Mark, to jump into the youth apprenticeship model.
Excellent. Thank you, Lucinda. I appreciate, and JFF and I appreciate the partnership of IACME and the support of USDOD in this project. And I'll take the time. I saw a couple folks just joined after I talked. So just to reintroduce myself, I am Mark Genoa, a director at Jobs for the Future, and the metal project lead for JFF. And JFF, we run the apprenticeship portion of the metal project, but please reach out to Lucinda if you want to learn about the many other components of the metal project, because there is a lot. So youth apprenticeship, you can go to the next slide. Youth apprenticeship is a work-based learning program designed for high school students, combining on-the-job experience with related technical instructions. It allows students to develop those practical skills and potentially earn industry-recognized credentials and college credits while still in high school, gets them a jump start into the workforce. And while these programs typically employ high school students, youth apprenticeship is, most, I would say, closely associated with working with high schools as apprentices. In my many years of working in apprenticeship, especially youth apprenticeship, I've seen examples of youth apprenticeship in industry-specific training programs, maybe outside the high school setting, and these programs that serve young people. I've worked to connect them with youth apprenticeship programs with employers, especially in manufacturing, and they've been very successful. So really overall, you can actually go back to the last slide. Sorry about that, Michelle. Overall, really how we think about work-based learning, matters. And as you can see on the screen, there's a continuum of learning that could take place at or with employers at or in the workplace. Really, it starts on the left side of the slide facing me. It starts with career exploration activities. These really are meant to get students interested in a career or industry, kind of that light touch when students are first starting out, exploring what they want to do. And these could be in the form of career fairs, industry projects that they're working with a particular CTE program or other program at the school. And then really when you kind of cross that line into more solidified experiences, first step is the career exposure and career engagement activities. And these really further engage students in their career industry of interest. And then finally, at the far end of the spectrum here is your youth apprenticeship and on-the-job training programs, which actually provide the actual training and work at a company. The left side takes place typically before an apprenticeship starts, maybe in a pre-apprenticeship or other type of exploration activities. But then really the actual work in employment and apprenticeship happens at that career experience level. Next slide, please. So really, these are the core components of youth apprenticeship. And, if for those in the apprenticeship world, these may sound familiar, because youth apprenticeship has very many of the characteristics of a traditional, apprenticeship, one maybe tailored for more adult population. And while there's no, I would say, specific mechanism at the federal level for youth apprenticeship. Many states, including Wisconsin, as you will hear from Michelle, have implemented a youth apprenticeship specific registration process, program, and pathway to allow students into these programs. And not just Wisconsin, many other states are doing it. So again, it does include those core components of an apprenticeship, that on-the-job learning, where apprentices are working and receiving that instruction, progressing through competencies and tasks under the guidance of skilled workers, or what they call mentors or journey people in apprenticeship language. And then all the while they're doing that, they're receiving that related instruction. And, related instruction really is done to support what the youth apprentice in this case, is learning on the job. And it can be offered by the company. Many times companies have robust training offerings that they do. An educational institution could be involved, be it the high school where they're at. A lot of programs include community colleges for dual enrollment, so they're receiving credit while they're in the program, and or other training providers can be a part of the program. And this could be done like a regular apprenticeship, both in person or online. There's many online offerings out there, including through the Metal program, where programs can access to enhance the related instruction. But the real difference in youth apprenticeship comes in that youth aspect, and particularly if they're working in a high school setting, because really the program is customized to the time and structure of high school and the schedule of the student. And it's really all overall part of that pathway into a high quality career and connection to further education. In addition, what's very important in a youth apprenticeship is consistent assessments and check-ins. Almost I would say more so than an adult apprenticeship, because again, these are young people, these are students. This may be their first experience in a job site. They're interested in this career, and again, you want to make sure they're successful, not only for obviously for them, for the company, for the program overall. So that consistent assessments are key. And you're here, Michelle at Wisconsin Aluminum Foundry, how they conduct those. And then finally, the attainment of some type of credential is seen that leads to a high quality program. If it's registered at the state level or federal level, even they get a credential at the completion of the program, just because you have that registration status. But other programs have different various certifications built in that apprentices can attain during or at the end of the program. Next slide, please. And partners are key in a youth apprenticeship. While in just usual registered apprenticeship, many times partners are brought in to support some aspect of the program. But in youth apprenticeship, I would almost say partnership is a requirement. Partners are required to make the program a success. Obviously, you have the employer, where the program couldn't exist without it. They provide that opportunity. They provide the training, the skilled mentors. And then you have the educational institution. Naturally, you're working with a high school where that student comes from. So, it requires working within the high school confines. A lot of times there's early release schedules, day release schedules that high schools can allow for to, make sure that the apprentice can get to the work site and work. But not only kind of a high school, as I mentioned, a lot of times community colleges are involved in these programs, so that there's that coordination between the high school and community college on dual enrollment or other classes that the youth apprentices is taken, either online or even off-site at the college. And then finally, just because there are so many moving parts in a youth apprenticeship program, as you might already can tell, intermediaries sometimes play that key role in connecting and facilitating all the different activities going on. And now these intermediaries are sometimes actual what they call sponsors of programs, meaning on paper they're the operator of the program. They conduct the program on the behalf of the employer involved in it. And then other times the employer acts as the sponsor and the intermediary there is really there to support and coordinate these activities. Beyond these partners, there's many other partners that can be brought in to support both the youth apprentices, the employer, the educational offerings, anything. But again, it's a more than likely requirement to make the program a success. Next slide, please. So here we find from our friends a partner organization, New America, and their PIA network, Partnership to Advance Youth Apprenticeship. And they developed this infographic to give an idea of what a typical program could look like. Again, this is not set in stone. A lot of programs look very different, really based on the employer, the high school, or whatever training provider you're working with. But typically we see programs maybe start out in the junior year of a high school, especially in manufacturing, where they're at least 16 or older to be able to enter the workplace. And, with that in year one, there's less time, less work on site, more in the classroom. And that, those averages start to even out as they get into their senior year. They're spending more time at the work site on their OJL because they're seniors. Maybe they have, like I said, early release, day of release, they're able to get as seniors. And then sometimes these programs even could continue after graduation, where the youth apprentice is now working full time, at the workplace now that they graduated high school. Sometimes programs end at high school graduation and they continue on as regular employees of the company after graduation. But again, there's many different shapes and forms to these programs. And that's, one thing that JFF helps with, customized to meet the needs of the program. And I do see a question here. What are the hours required? We will get to that in a bit because it varies. You'll hear Michelle's example, but we'll kind of get to that in the Q&A. Thank you for that question. All right, next slide. So overall, high quality program, a lot of factors go into it. Obviously, the first one, career oriented. An apprenticeship program is just that. So if you have the presence of a program, making sure the OJL is occupation specific, industry specific, related instruction is really supporting what they're learning on the job. That's how a proper high quality program looks like. Available. It's available to all students who qualify for it. It's not restrictive, creating barriers, but setting the baseline for what what is needed to get into this program, and making sure that's available to all, and even having prior preparatory programs before to prepare those students who might need a little leg up in certain skills to get into the program. Portable, there's some type of credentials involved in the program, be it the registration credential at the end or other credential, as well. And those credentials are something the youth apprentice can have with them for the life of their careers. Adaptable, the program can be customized to meet the needs of both the student, the employer, and all the other partners involved to make it a success. And accountable. Every partner, including the apprentice, the employer, and everyone else, is being clear about what the requirements are, and they're accountable to the various operations within the program. And I see another question. We will definitely get to that because that's an important question. Difference between pre-apprenticeship and apprenticeship. We'll get to that in the Q&A. And with that, I believe that is my last slide. So yes, here's Michelle here on the picture on screen. So happy to join us. Appreciative of Michelle's time to join us. And we have Michelle Szymik. She's the Vice President of Human Resources at Wisconsin Aluminum Foundry, where she oversees all functional areas of human resources for multiple business units in Wisconsin, Indiana, Michigan, Iowa, and Minnesota. And she has over 20 years of progressive HR management experience across various industries, including manufacturing, distribution, call centers, and professional services. And she's here representing the Youth Apprenticeship Program at Wisconsin Aluminum Foundry for more than 110 years. This foundry has built a legacy of dependable quality, on-time delivery, and long-term long-term customer relationships. The company provides custom manufacturing components across a wide range of industries, from heavy-duty trucking and automotive to defense, agriculture, and medical, each with its own set of specialized demand. So with that, I would like to turn it over to Michelle. Again, Michelle, thank you for joining us.
Awesome. Thanks, Mark. And thanks everybody for joining us today. So yeah, like Mark said, I just am going to share a little bit about our kind of journey with youth apprenticeships. And if you could go to the next slide, Michelle, that'd be great. You know, in our industry, specifically in the foundry industry, there's not a lot of training that, you know, it's not like you can go to a technical college and become a permanent mold pourer or things like that in the metal casting industry. So it makes it a little difficult to find, you know, find the talent and then get them trained up. A lot of it is just on the job training. We also compete with manufacturers. We're in, all of our foundries are in very small manufacturing heavy locations. So we're competing with other manufacturers for talent. And so we decided, I mean, obviously we have to grow it ourselves. So we started on this journey back in 2021 with youth apprenticeships as well as regular apprenticeships. And, you know, just looking at it, classrooms are for everybody. So, you know, there's a lot of students out there that, you know, might get pushed into, you know, going on to, you know, secondary education after high school that aren't really, you know, don't really want to sit in a classroom. They want to just get out there. They want to learn a trade. And we love that. So we are going to tap into that. Next slide, Michelle. I think it's the next two slides. So our journey. So like I said, we started with youth apprenticeships in 2021. Since during that time, we've had 35 total youth apprenticeships in our program, not generally all at the same time. We'll have several each semester, you know, during high school. Some come in, some come out. Some stay for the whole 2 years. So they come in as a junior and stay through junior, senior, and then maybe go on to something else. But we've had 5 that have actually stayed and signed on. You know, as full-time employees and made this and decided to make this a career, which we love. So that's worked out really well for us. In Wisconsin, we're very lucky in Wisconsin because we've got the oldest youth apprenticeship program, structured youth apprenticeship program. It's been in place since 1911. And I think Georgia comes in second, and theirs was started in 1993. They're state-sponsored programs. So it really is nice for us because there's a lot of structure around it already. One of the pieces, and I wanted to talk a little bit about intermediaries. So Mark had talked about that in his slide. Our intermediary in Wisconsin is called CISA. They've got different, ours is CISA 6 here in Manitowoc, but it's a college and career readiness center. And they are our intermediary between the high schools for our youth apprenticeship program. Like I said, it's very structured. They help you through kind of navigating. I know a lot of people think in metal manufacturing, you can't have anybody working in your you know, work who's under 18 because of child labor laws. In Wisconsin, they do relax some of those child labor laws. It's called a student learner exemption. So there's more machinery and different things that at ages 16 and 17 that they can operate. Whereas if they're not in the student learner program, they wouldn't be able to do it. And I think you know, the reason they do that is because it is so structured. We have, and you'll see it in our, you know, when I talk a little bit about our formal agreement, you know, we have to make sure that, you know, we give them, you know, the safety training and all of those things. We're assuring that as we sign these agreements for the youth apprenticeship program, that we're going to do these things. And so that's why some of those, they give us that student learner exemption. So my recommendation, check with local high schools. And if you have a college and career readiness center through your Department of Labor in your state, there may be these things out there that I'm not even aware of. I haven't researched every state. But there might be something that is formalized out there that you could tap into. Also, there is a formal agreement, and I'll go into that in a little bit. That's required of every student. And the other requirement is that we give them regular quarterly evaluations. And there's actually an evaluation form, a formalized evaluation form that they go through that evaluation with the high school representative, the parent, the mentor, and obviously the student, and walk through some different things. And we can look at that here in a couple slides. Michelle, next slide. All right, and then so the agreement that we sign, like I said, the employer, parent, and student must sign it. And there's obviously it lays out a number of assurances. One of those being safety, that we're going to provide robust safety training on equipment and all of those things. It's just a number of things that we will do. There's an assurance in there. We're a union shop, so there's an assurance in there that we're not going to violate any of our collective bargaining agreements. Just different, things like that they want to make sure that everybody's doing everything above board, kind of a thing. Then there's a list of student expectations on what they need to do, that they're going to come to work, that they're going to, abide by all the rules of the agreement and of the program, parent expectations and how they support the student through this. And then obviously employer expectations, and then school district expectations. So everybody has a good sizable list of things that we have to do to make sure that the student is successful in the youth apprenticeship program. And then they're even provided with a full-blown student handbook. So kind of like when you start a new job, you get an employer, employee handbook. They have a student handbook to be a good steward of the youth apprenticeship arrangement. Next slide. And then the YA evaluation, and this is one of my favorite things, because they're not only just learning the technical aspects of a role, they are learning those true, soft skills that you need to be successful after, as you're going on for a career. So, all those things that we look for in a good employee: teamwork and communication, accuracy and reliability, attitude and flexibility, all of those things. Workplace standards. So just, do they abide by our handbook? I mean, when we hire these youth apprentices in, they are our employees. We hire them in just like we would any other employee. They're paid. We start our youth apprentices at $15 an hour, but they're expected to follow all of those work rules that we have in place. And so they all apply the same way. And then they obviously, whatever area that they're working in, they learn their technical aspects. So those manufacturing fundamental competencies and the equipment that goes along with it. Each quarter, they do get an overall letter grade. So these are they're grades that they're just like they would a report card, in school. And this is an in-person meeting to go through and walk through each section of the evaluation with the worker and the youth apprentice. So I know that there's some questions about the mentors, and I wanted to just kind of talk about that. So our mentors are really our supervisors and our managers are responsible for mentoring our student apprenticeships, and they are the ones doing the evaluations. We also have group leads that are involved in the relationship as well, but these are the technical experts. So they're making sure that they're being a good ambassador as far as, how to be successful in our workplace, but then also teaching them those technical skills. And like I said, it's on the job learning. So those are the mentors that we choose in each of our departments, depending on where we're placing them. So we've got people, if you're in a foundry, you'll probably understand my language here, but we've got people in our core room. We actually had a youth apprentice who just graduated this year, who is running our shell core machines. And she was very good. She's awesome. And then she since moved over to our machine shop. So now she's over there learning how to run CNC machines. So we've had them in our finishing department. So in Wisconsin, 16-year-olds can run belt sanders. 16 and 17-year-olds. So we've had them finishing castings. So there's a lot of opportunity there for them to really learn a good trade, and get a good skill set. The other thing we do, and I know Mark talked a little bit about the related instruction. We do tap into the American Foundry Society has a really great e-learning platform that we leverage, and we do have them take courses in there just to understand the overall casting process, kind of understanding the big picture of what happens in our foundries. And then even some detailed ones that kind of apply as well. And so I always recommend, tap into those industry specific training platforms, because the high school doesn't have a mini foundry that they're teaching them the related instruction over there at the school when they're there. I know, Mark, you have brought up hours requirement. All of our youth apprentices, they actually come here during the day. So part of their school day is working here. And they get, and that's why they have the overall letter grades and they get the quarterly reviews and things like that. And there's not a specific amount of hours that I can see in our general agreements. I will share those agreements too, so that you guys can see what we sign off, so you can get more detail on them if anybody wants to look at like an example agreement or evaluation. But I do know that they are here part-time. Some of them work 30 hours a week while they're in the program. Some of them go to school during the day and come in and work, the evening shift. So it's all over the board, and we're really flexible with them. I mean, we try to work with the students so that they can get enough hours in to graduate, but then also, to be able to, that it works with their schedule, I guess. So there's some of that flexibility there as well. Outside of that, I think that's all that I have.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you so much, Michelle. Great example, and really admire Wisconsin Aluminum Foundry for operating, youth apprenticeship. Not many employers would feel comfortable dipping their toes, working with a young population. I really commend the company for doing that. And that brings, and looking at the time, we have plenty of time for questions, which I love, because there's tons of questions in the chat as we were talking. The first one, speaking of kind of, bringing in young people to the workplace, you touched on it a little, Michelle. There's a question about certain manufacturing jobs require a minimum age of 18. It sounds like in Wisconsin it's a little relaxed. Could you go into more about what the apprentices are doing and all that in Wisconsin?
Yeah, like I said, we've got we had them running our shell core machines, so they're actually making sand cores for our castings. These are heavy equipment and heavy machinery, so that they can actually do at 16 and over. So we've had, and like I said, it's really great, because the girl that was that we brought in the youth apprenticeship program, she's about 5 feet tall and weighs about 95 pounds, and she's running this big shell core machine making these huge sand castings. So it was really awesome to see that, and to show everybody that not only can the youth be successful at this, but somebody that is not who we would expect to be in a foundry environment is really successful at it. And I'm looking at this, I've actually got it looks like about a 10-page list of the child labor laws and the different, and this is right off the Department of Workforce Development website, that it talks about what they can do under the student learner exemption and at what ages. So it gives specific machinery, equipment, and you can just look at it as it's all listed out there. This was, like I said, it is on our Department of Workforce Development website, but CISA 7 or CISA 6 also provided it to us. So our intermediary also made sure that we had the list and we understood, because we got to make sure we're not putting them anywhere that's unsafe as well. So.
No, and that's good advice. Depending on what state you're in, definitely reach out to your labor or workforce department. And two, it just made me think of not too long ago, I put it in the chat, JFF released a resource for you all that compiles all the labor law information across the country. So that's something too. Feel free to go to that link, something we can share afterwards too. But then again, encourage you to reach out to your state office there. And, Michelle, how, while the youth apprentices are working, what does supervision look like? Is there someone like around them all the time? Are they left alone at any certain points? How does that really work within the program?
Yeah, it all depends on the student. I mean, some of them pick things up a little faster than others. There's always a leader that's available for questions if they need them. But the mentors really kind of key off of the student and their ability and how quickly they're picking things up, whether they can, leave them alone. But no, it's not constant supervision with these students. Excellent.
So it sounds like it's customized on the advancement of the students, and if the mentor is comfortable kind of leaving them at a piece of certain machinery that they can operate. Excellent. And looking through the questions, and I wanted to get in terms of hours, I know that I brought that up in Michelle, you kind of covered it.
Yeah.
So I would say and I could kind of feel this one. There's certain hours. So as I mentioned, at the federal level, there's no, I would say, separate youth apprenticeship mechanism, kind of like there is in Wisconsin. So if you're, registering at the federal level and you want to, you would just go into the regular registered apprenticeship, which requires 2,000 hours of on-the-job learning with 144 hours of related instruction. And obviously within youth apprenticeship, that takes a little bit longer to complete those hours. But as Michelle mentioned, when you get down to some of the states like Wisconsin, they've offered, I would say, more relaxed hours, a more relaxed setting that offers that opportunity to youth apprentices. So again, I encourage you to, check with your state if they have any specific youth apprenticeship regulations. And if not, there's always the option of going federally. And that's something JFF, if some of these terms I threw out you're unfamiliar with, that's something JFF can talk you through and make sure you're doing. But then there's also the option of not registering your program and operating your youth apprenticeship as a non-registered program. Obviously, that comes without the benefits of being registered. But then there is that option too, where you're setting that framework yourselves. So just wanted to clarify that. Go ahead, Michelle.
Yeah, and Mark, I wanted to jump in. Something that I just thought of, it's talking about the mentors and the benefits for the mentors. So this really, since we brought in the youth apprenticeship program, it's really given people an opportunity to learn leadership skills. And, we kind of use that as a way to grow and develop our up and coming leaders too. And people to take on bigger, stronger leadership roles. It gives them an opportunity to just practice those skills. So they really find a lot of benefit in it as well. I think some people think, oh, this is just another thing for my supervisor to have to babysit somebody or, that type of thing. But it really isn't. And they found a lot of value is what I see from our mentors.
Excellent. That's a great point. And, a lot of times they think all the benefit is on that apprentice, on that student, but it sounds like it kind of goes throughout the company, mentors included, and that happens a lot of times. You bring young people into your facility, kind of brings that young energy in and that excitement to show off the skills to them. So I agree. I've seen that across the board, and it sounds like I see is it Jill in the chat mentioned they're employing 13 students as well. So it seems like Jill's company is seeing the benefit as well. Let me see some of these other questions. A couple on recruitment, Michelle. Yeah. How do you typically recruit the youth? Like, are you going on site to the schools? Do they come to you? Are they local? How do they get to your facility? Can you walk us through that process?
Yeah. So I think the first year that we did this, we were going on site at the schools. Now we just simply reach out to our intermediary and say, hey, we've got 4 openings, for youth apprenticeships, and they help us find students that are interested in that type of a youth apprenticeship. So we don't have to do a lot of outward recruiting spend or budgeting with it. Some of the taglines that that we've used in the past when we were first starting up the program was kind of a earn while you learn kind of a thing, and gain a trade, earn while you learn. So, we were doing some of that, but once your program gets going, you really don't have to put a lot of energy into the recruitment of it, because you're connected with the high school. They know you've got the program. You have your intermediary if you're in a registered program, and they kind of do the recruitment for you.
Excellent. And how many high schools are you usually dealing with? Are they coming from a couple different ones?
We have 3 or 4 different high schools that we've had students from in the area.
Okay.
Yeah.
And are they getting to your facility? Some might be driving since they're 16. Maybe parents are driving them. Is that typically how it works?
They're generally driving themselves. They've got a way. Most of them nowadays they're like, they want to get their car, they want to get mobile and independent, and so they've generally, I've seen them just driving themselves. We might have had 1 or 2 where the parents are giving them a ride, but for the most part, they really don't have a whole lot of attendance issues.
So excellent. Now that's great to hear. Wow.
Yeah.
Excellent. Looking through questions. Okay, there's one question that we didn't get to yet about the transition. How has the transition been from youth apprenticeship that graduate high school. And I know with the foundry, yours, Michelle, they could continue as a regular employee. So it's at graduation where the program ends and they enter in as employees. So how's that transition been? What kind of is like for those? I think you said the 5 that kind of stayed on.
Yeah, I mean, there's really not really a whole lot of transition. It's we kind of do a celebration. They've graduated high school. Congratulations. They've decided to stay on. But they've been employees the whole time. They were part-time, so there may be some transition to here. Now you're offered benefits and you're eligible for benefits. So, because you're going full-time. So we have to go through that process, but they've already been through all the orientation, all of those things. And so they just kind of move in and stay where they're at and continue to work.
Yeah,
There's more hours.
Excellent. So have you seen that transition? Have they taken it, going from part-time school work to full-time work? Have they been kind of thriving in that environment?
They love it. They can't wait because they know, they like to work with their hands. They don't like to be in a classroom. And so as soon as they can get out of that classroom and they're here full-time, making full-time pay, and obviously they get a pay bump because, they were making $15 an hour as a youth apprentice. And then it goes to, our contractual union contractual pay. So they're ready to jump right into that and they're happy.
No, that's great to hear. And you mentioned now and a couple times before the union. A lot of the employers might have unionized facilities like the foundry there. How's that relationship been? Kind of with the youth apprenticeship program and working with the union.
Yeah, it's been great. I mean, we've got so in all of our contracts we have language around hiring youth apprentices and that type of thing. The one challenge that we've had is, kind of manufacturing has had a little bit of a downturn in the last year or two. I don't know if anybody noticed, but they, we can't, if we have a downturn in business, we have to keep our union folks versus youth apprentice. So we've had to have a little tougher conversations in the last year with some of our YAs, but just because we've got the union folks here and we can't displace them. So that, you can't go outside of your collective bargaining agreement, obviously. So that's been a little bit of a challenge in the past year or so. But hopefully that will resolve itself here soon.
Yes, we're all hoping. Yeah, most definitely. All right, looking through the questions, a couple more. You did confirm that they are in fact W-2 employees when they're youth apprentices. Are they on your workers' comp? There was a question.
Yes.
But they are.
Yep.
Okay.
They're all covered under everything. Yep. They're just like a regular employee.
Okay, excellent. Another safety related question. OSHA, is there any kind of OSHA restrictions limit the work they can do? Not that it seems like, again, you're following those state laws that they dictate what they can do in a manufacturing facility. Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The state dictates that. And then OSHA obviously dictates for all employees what's safe and unsafe. So yeah, there's no change there.
Okay, excellent. And important to touch on these questions because I know that, a lot of times manufacturers are, kind of hesitant to work with young people. There was a question. You keep mentioning there's you mentioned a young lady who's come into your facility and working. Has this brought in this youth apprenticeship, maybe brought in more females, more kind of, a population that you don't typically recruit from? How does that, how's the youth apprenticeship program help kind of widen the workforce and network in the company?
Yeah, I mean, I do think it's really interested a lot more. Once you have one female that comes in and in the youth apprenticeship program and they have a good experience, and they generally have friends who are, of similar mind and thought and enjoy the same things. And so we've seen them, hey, you really, there's an opportunity, come on over. So yeah, you definitely see that, happening and getting that, different people that you wouldn't think would be a fit, getting interested in it.
Excellent. The word of mouth is important.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. Another kind of employment related question. Healthcare benefits. Do they receive healthcare benefits while they're youth apprentices, or does that kick in if they're full-time employees?
Yeah, not until they're full-time.
Okay. All right. So
Yep.
they're kind of under your part-time status still,
Yeah.
ineligible for those benefits. But if they switch to full-time, that's when, like a regular employee, they
Yeah,
they
we
kick
have to
in.
offer it to them, but generally they're still probably on a parent's like health insurance plan and stuff. Not a
Sure.
lot of
Yeah.
them take the insurance benefits.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
Because they can generally stay on their parents' benefits till they're 26.
Mhm.
So a lot of them will just, not take those benefits. So it's kind of a benefit to the employer as well. Because you're not paying for their health care and that kind of thing right out of the gate.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, too, there's a question I missed. I think it was right at the top. It was someone asking the benefits the differences in benefits between a youth pre-apprenticeship and youth apprenticeship. And that's something that, I can start off, Michelle, and you can
Yeah.
kind of, fill in. So, as we've been talking about, an apprenticeship is actually, a job, whereas, a pre-apprenticeship is that preparatory program, before a job. And, I think there's, the benefits of each. There's, in an apprenticeship, they're actually working, they're actually receiving training, instruction, and it's going towards something like a credential or going to their future careers. Whereas a pre-apprenticeship is more like preparing them for that first interest in the program. So, typically we see pre-apprenticeships run by high schools, by training providers, not necessarily by employers. It's the apprenticeship, kind of joining these apprenticeship programs that are run by employers where they have that employment. And speaking of that, Michelle, do you work with any type of pre-apprenticeship program before they enter in, or is it kind of straight from high school that enters right into the program?
We don't do pre-apprenticeships. Once we've had high schools bring over, busloads of kids to do foundry tours and things like that. We'll do like a manufacturing day or something like that just to highlight our foundry and things like that, but not anything official pre-apprentice where they're coming in and job shadowing or things like that.
Yeah. And just to add to that, I saw Jessica mention about Ohio, and yeah, that's something to acknowledge. As certain states have developed a mechanism for youth apprenticeship, other states have developed a mechanism to register pre-apprenticeship programs. Ohio, I think PA is another one where I'm located. So with that, there are different components that are required, with that program. So that's something to acknowledge as well. Let's see. There's a question about occupation. So do the youth apprentices typically work, within the same occupation, within the same room, or do they rotate? How does that usually work?
We've had them spread out. So we've had them in, maintenance. We've had them in our machine shop, in all different departments. It's not like they're like a cluster and they're just in a certain area. The one place that we absolutely can't have them is pouring molten metal, obviously. So we will not have anybody under 18 actually involved with pouring metal, or melting metal, but all the processes around it, we've had youth apprentices working in.
Yes. And do they work in that same thing the whole time, or do you like rotate them?
Nope. They'll generally work in that area the entire time. Unless we have an opportunity in another area and we say, hey, would you be interested? Maybe it's a more critical area and we know that we can facilitate the apprentice over there, then we'll ask them. And we also have to work back through the intermediary and the school, and the whole support group to make sure that it's okay when we're moving them from one department to another.
Okay. And then typically, for those who have continued on to full-time employment after graduation, do they end up in that same occupation, or sometimes do they end up in maybe what others available?
Yeah, they generally will stay in the place where they did the youth apprenticeship. There's one department that everybody wants to get into because they can make a lot more pay in it. So if an opening comes up, they may try to go over there, and so we see some of that going on. But generally, they'll continue on in where they were, the YA.
Okay, excellent. Another question, tons of more questions coming through. Pay scale, you mentioned they start out at $15 an hour. Do they stay there? Is there any bump while they're youth apprentices, or is that bump not until they're full-time employees?
Not until they're full-time. So we'll keep them at the 15. Yep. The only place that we've gone a little bit higher is we have had some YAs in our engineering department. And they generally will have a little more, the learning in classroom learning and engineering and things like that. So we start those engineering YAs at $20 an hour.
20, nice, excellent, excellent. That's good. Let's see. Does Wisconsin require a direct connect between a youth apprenticeship and specific journey person? So, is it kind of like I think a 1-to-1 ratio for every youth apprenticeship you bring on? Does there have to be one, as they call it, journey person, on board?
No, it just has to be a mentor that has technical expertise. There's certain criteria for the mentor.
Sure.
But no, they don't have to be a journeyman like a registered apprenticeship.
Yeah, and I know a lot of states have relaxed those rules because they realize that you gotta. I think you brought this up maybe in a previous webinar we did, Michelle, about you gotta start somewhere. So obviously, if you just start a program, they're not going to have journey people there. But I know they've relaxed as a skilled mentor. And speaking of that, now the Foundry, you run registered apprenticeship programs apart from the youth apprenticeship. Do these two programs connect in any way? Youth apprenticeship or apprenticeship? Do they interact, or they kind of run on different streams there?
They technically could, but the ones that we're talking about with the youth apprenticeships, it's really in the spaces where there is no kind of registered apprenticeship, where there's school, like a CNC machine operator would be one where we potentially could have that connect into our registered apprenticeship program, because there's schooling and there's the programs created. But when you're talking about teaching somebody how to, run a shell core machine, they're not going to learn that at a technical college. They're not going to. So generally that's where we focus our YAs, is the ones where we know there's no continuing education. We know that, we want to get these people interested early and get them to stay here and understand this is a career, and then give them all the training that they need here.
Oh, nice. I love that. So you kind of see where the gaps are and use the apprenticeship to kind of fill those gaps within the company and within the industry at all. I like that approach, most definitely. Let me see. You kind of touched on, someone asked a question, how they're evaluated. You had mentioned that about that on site, and you mentioned that happens every quarter, did you say, or is it more often? Okay, quarter.
Yep, every quarter.
And you had mentioned they receive a letter grade as being part of the program, correct?
Yes, correct.
Okay, and that goes something like on their high school transcript, I assume, as like kind of a work studies type situation.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. Let me see if I missed any more questions. I didn't even have to utilize really any of my questions. So many great questions today. I know Becky here is backing me up. Becky, did I miss any questions here? Did I cover them all?
It looked to me like you got them all.
Okay. All right. Excellent. So let me see if we have any kind of, what do we got? A couple minutes here. So I guess, in our couple last minutes here, Michelle, do you have any kind of last words or advice for, the employers that are, here today that might listen to this recording about, how do you, where do you begin? Where do you begin on the youth apprenticeship? How do you start, and why should they do it?
Yeah, I think, I think everybody should do it, especially, it is so hard to get people to go into metals, our industry and manufacturing metals. And it just seems, there's so many people out there that, like I said, the classroom isn't for everybody, and they don't realize that they could actually do this job, and it's not as bad as one would think, and there's really a lot of positives of it. And the more we could get into the high schools and show these folks and show these kids that it is an opportunity, I think the better. So I think everybody should be, every employer that's in the metals industry should be connected with the high schools and the youth, and getting in there and talking about what we do. And that's really how this was born and how we started. And I think that's where you start, is just getting connected with your high school leadership and saying, how can we talk about what we do, and, get people, tap into the people who are interested in finding out more, and tap into the ones that want to come in and do something like this, and creating a program. I think, it sounds harder than it probably is. I mean, like I said, we're fortunate in Wisconsin. I know some of you out there in other states may not be as fortunate to have like this nice prepackaged, here you go, this is what you do. But I think to Mark's point earlier that there's just some basics, even if you don't want to do a registered program, that you can get started and get these kids in the door and get them starting to work for you and getting them excited about metal casting.
Excellent. And that's exactly what JFF is here to help with. Lori, I mentioned just now, is there a step-by-step guide for development? Various resources out there, but JFF here, that's what we do on the Metal Project. We help companies build programs, youth apprenticeship, adult apprenticeship, whatever the preference is. So we can help you get connected to that local high school. We can help you develop the program. So you'll see mine and my colleagues Becky's contact information on the last slide here. Please reach out to us. We'll have a conversation and we'll get you going on a youth apprenticeship program. Michelle, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate the knowledge information you shared. Thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, you're welcome. And thank you, everybody.
Excellent. And then in our last couple of minutes, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague here, Becky Caldwell, to see how you can get connected to us in the Metal Project. And thank you all for attending.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks, Michelle. I love hearing about youth apprenticeship. I think it's an incredible model. And like you all said, the first step can be to call us about it or to call your local school. As Mark said, you really need local partners. So in this case, you really need to call your school board. You should also check your state apprenticeship office and just try to get the lay of the land about youth apprenticeship in your state, because so many states are really interested in this and they have some resources. But I'm here to tell you a little bit more about what the Metal Project can do. So next slide. We through this project and in partnership with IACME, we have a lot of resources available to companies to help them build adult apprenticeships and youth apprenticeships. There's a lot of curriculum online, and I had shared at the very top of the hour, I shared the website, the Metal for America website. And if you go on there, you're going to see a lot of free curriculum. And you don't have to. We'd love for you to use it as part of an apprenticeship, but you can use it on your own and have your employees go through it and help build their skills and upskill your workforce. The JFF really is part of this project to help build work-based learning programs, especially apprenticeships. So we're hoping some of you reach back out to us, and I'll be reaching out to you to just set up a call to talk about the project and how we can help. Starting with what is your biggest need? Casting and forging, we're still hearing a lot about maintenance techs and machinists, and there is some mold making and more specific occupations to casting and forging. But we can do talk to you about any occupation, and then we bring in the local partners, or we can start from scratch, whatever you want to do. And we do have there's another partner on this project called FEF, the Foundry Educational Foundation, that is also interested in internships. So if you come to us, then we can connect you with them, and they can talk to you about how to build up an internship program at your company. So next slide. We do have some funding available through this project, which is, fantastic to be able to share this with companies. So it is up to $24,000 per company, and it's based on the number of participants in your program. And it really needs to be either an apprenticeship or a really good quality work-based learning program that we can support. So there is an online, contact me and I can send you the link to the application if you're interested. And it does you can use it to cover a lot of different things in an apprenticeship, including supplies and materials, curriculum, anything but wages. So, and you need to be involved in the casting and forging and plate rolling industry. So just give me a shout and we can have a call about it, and I can send you a link to our online application. Next. There's our contact information, Lucinda and I and Mark, and give us send us a note if we didn't catch your questions this time, and we're happy to ask them and set up a follow-up call. We will, as Mark said, we'll be sending out a recording of this presentation today. But I appreciate you guys coming. Mark, is there anything I missed? Lucinda?
No, you covered it all. I think we're about close here. So again, I appreciate everyone attending, listening, joining. And as Becky said, reach out. Let's set up a call and have a conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Bye-bye. Good afternoon.
Everyone. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.